Akira. 1988 wasn't just an anime. It was an animation revolution that destroyed budgets, invented new colors, and changed film history forever. The director thought it was a total failure. The animators couldn't survive on what it paid. And it used techniques so expensive that Japan had never attempted them before. This was before computer animation existed. These are some insane facts about the most expensive hand-drawn film ever created. The director declared it a failure. When Katsuhiro Otomo watched the first screening of Akira, he didn't stay to celebrate. He didn't talk to the crew. He walked out of the theater immediately and went straight home to tell his wife the devastating news. The movie was a complete failure. Otomo was convinced the animation quality declined in the second half due to budget and time constraints. The pacing felt wrong. The cuts were too severe. He had compressed over 2,000 pages of his own manga into 2 hours and believed he had destroyed his masterpiece. For years, Otomo refused to watch Akira again. He gave interviews where he openly discussed his disappointment. Then, years later, composer Shoji Yamashiro invited him to view the film with a remastered 5-channel audio mix. This time, something changed. Maybe time had softened him, but Otomo finally saw what audiences had been telling him all along. The film wasn't a failure, it was revolutionary. But that first night, he was certain he had created a disaster. 50 brand new colors. Most animated films in 1988 used standard color palettes developed over decades. Akira threw that rulebook directly into the trash. The production team invented 50 completely new colors specifically for this film. The total color palette reached 327 different shades, a record that stood for years. Why would anyone need 50 new colors? Because Akira takes place almost entirely at night. Traditional anime avoided night scenes because darkness is incredibly difficult to animate. You need subtle variations in shadow, light reflection, and atmospheric depth that standard palettes simply cannot provide. Chief colorist Kimi Yamana explained the challenge directly. She said that if you look at the color chart, you see a tremendous variety of dark tones that you would never see in any other animation. The subtlety is so refined that you wouldn't even notice it on a television screen. But projected in a theater, the massive range of colors creates depth and realism that makes the city feel alive. Each color had to be mixed by hand using acrylic-based paints. Every single light source in Neo-Tokyo was painted individually by human artists. 160,000 hand-drawn frames. Animation in the 1980s typically used between 50,000 to 70,000 individual cells for a feature-length film. Studios saved money through a technique called limited animation, where they reused frames constantly and only animated the essential moving parts. Characters would stand completely still except for their mouths. Backgrounds never moved. It looked cheap because it was cheap. Katsuhiro Otomo refused to accept those limitations. Akira contains over 160,000 individual animation cells. That is 2 to 3 times more than a standard animated feature. Every single cell was hand-drawn by artists, painted with custom colors, photographed separately, and assembled at 24 frames per second. The film contains 2,212 individual shots. Every light reflection was painted by hand. Every shadow was deliberately crafted. The backgrounds weren't static images. They were living, breathing environments with moving elements throughout. Animators didn't just draw characters moving through the city. They drew the entire city moving around the characters. The level of detail meant that Neo-Tokyo felt more real than most live-action sets. Pre-scoring bankrupted animators. In standard anime production, animation is completed first. Then voice actors come in and try to match dialogue to whatever mouth movements the animators already drew. It's cheap, fast, and looks terrible. Characters sound disconnected from their actions. Lip movements never quite sync properly. Akira did the exact opposite. The film used pre-scoring, a technique where dialogue is recorded before a single frame is animated. This is standard practice at Disney and American studios, but it had never been done in Japan because it's exponentially more expensive. Voice actors recorded their complete performances first. Then animators had to draw every mouth movement, every facial expression, and every gesture to match the recorded audio perfectly. Actor Mitsuo Iwata described the process as revolutionary. When he did his first take in the pre-score session, the animators matched his mouth movements down to the tiniest details. Every laugh, every breath, every subtle nuance was captured. But this perfection came at a brutal cost. Animators are paid by shot, not by hour. The incredible detail required for pre-scoring meant they spent more time per frame while earning less money overall. Animators couldn't afford to work on this. Animator Kuni Tomita was working at TMS Entertainment when Akira went into production. The studio wanted her to work exclusively on the film. She refused. The reason was simple and devastating. You couldn't make money on Akira. She literally could not afford to survive if she only worked on this project. The incredible detail and time-consuming techniques meant that animators earned far less per week than they would on standard productions. So Tomita worked on 2 projects simultaneously. During the day, she animated ultra-violent, adult-oriented sequences for Akira. At night, she drew The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh for Disney. The contrast was absurd, but it was financial survival. Many animators devoted their entire lives to Akira, despite the terrible pay, because they wanted to work with Katsuhiro Otomo. They saw him as an artist, not just a director. The chance to be part of something revolutionary outweighed the fact that they were barely making rent. The most expensive anime ever made. The production budget for Akira reached 1.1 billion yen, approximately $10 million in 1988. This made it the most expensive Japanese animated film ever produced at the time. That record stood until Studio Ghibli's Spirited Away was released 13 years later in 2001. The money came from something called the Akira Committee, a partnership of 7 major Japanese entertainment companies who pooled resources because no single studio could afford the project alone. The committee included Kodansha, Mainichi Broadcasting System, Bandai, Hakuhodo, Toho, Laserdisc Corporation, and Sumitomo Corporation. Each company forwarded money and promotional support because they believed in Otomo's vision. The budget was unconventionally high from the very start. The original proposal requested 500 million yen before it eventually ballooned to 1.1 billion. This was a massive gamble for the entire Japanese animation industry. If Akira failed, it could have destroyed theatrical anime production for years. It almost did fail in Japan. Despite being well received critically in Japan, Akira barely made its money back at the Japanese box office. The film earned approximately 1.5 billion yen against its 700 million yen production budget. That sounds profitable until you factor in advertising, distribution, and marketing costs. The combined production and advertising budget reached 1.1 billion yen. The film essentially broke even, maybe earning a small profit, but nothing close to what investors expected. This was terrifying. So much money had been invested in proving that theatrical anime could compete with live-action blockbusters. If Akira had performed just slightly worse, the entire industry could have collapsed. The only reason the project became profitable was international audiences. Western fans discovered Akira and turned it into a phenomenon. Multiple re-releases over 3 decades brought the global total to approximately $50 million. Japan bet everything on this film and nearly lost. Foreign audiences saved anime's future. Released before the manga finished, Akira the manga ran from 1982 to 1990. Akira the film was released in 1988. That means the movie came out 2 years before the source material was finished. Katsuhiro Otomo was literally adapting his own incomplete story. The manga eventually reached over 2,000 pages across 120 chapters. The film covers approximately 1/3 of that material, focusing primarily on the first 2 volumes. Otomo had to invent an ending for the movie while simultaneously writing the manga's conclusion. He filled 2,000 pages of notebooks with ideas and character designs before trimming the final storyboard down to 738 pages. The pressure was immense. Otomo struggled for months to complete the manga. He later revealed that inspiration for the manga's final conclusion came from a conversation with Alejandro Jodorowsky, the legendary director who tried and failed to make his own version of Dune in the 1970s. The manga and film share similar thematic endings, but take vastly different narrative paths. Quick action recorder, torture. Katsuhiro Otomo demanded perfection from his animation team. To achieve this, he introduced a tool that made their lives significantly harder. The quick action recorder was a device that could digitize hand-drawn frames and play them back immediately at 24 frames per second. This allowed Otomo to check if sequences ran smoothly before finalizing them. It sounds helpful. In practice, it was torture. Animators would spend days completing a sequence, only to have Otomo review it on the recorder and demand they redraw everything because the movement wasn't fluid enough. Scenes were rejected and redrawn multiple times. The recorder caught every imperfection, every stiff gesture, every awkward transition that human eyes might miss during normal review. This is why Akira's animation looks so impossibly smooth compared to other anime from that era. Every frame was tested, rejected, corrected, and retested until it met Otomo's standards. The animators hated the process, but they couldn't argue with the results. George Lucas and Spielberg said no. When Akira was completed in 1987, distributors needed to bring it to American audiences. The film was offered to the two most powerful names in Hollywood, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. Both men turned it down immediately. They didn't believe American audiences would accept a violent Japanese animated film. Animation was for children. Akira was ultra-violent, politically complex, and unapologetically Japanese. Lucas and Spielberg thought it would bomb. They were spectacularly wrong. When Streamline Pictures finally released Akira in North American theaters on Christmas Day 1989, it grossed approximately $2.2 million despite minimal marketing and limited screenings. That might sound small, but for a subtitled Japanese animation film released with almost no studio support, it was revolutionary. Akira proved that Western audiences were hungry for mature animation. It broke down barriers that Disney had built over decades. And it made George Lucas and Steven Spielberg look foolish for underestimating the film's global appeal. Computer graphics. In 1988, Akira is famous for being hand-drawn, but it actually contains some of the earliest computer-generated imagery in anime history. The film is one of the last animated features to use traditional cell animation almost exclusively. Almost, but not quite. Dr. Onishi's pattern indicator, the circular device that displays Tetsuo's psychic wavelengths, features a computer-generated swirl pattern at its center. The waves themselves were hand-outlined, but the digital effect was revolutionary for 1988. Additionally, computers were used to plot the paths of falling objects, model parallax effects on backgrounds, and tweak lighting effects, including lens flares. These digital elements were seamlessly integrated with the hand-drawn animation. Most viewers never noticed the difference. This blend of traditional and digital techniques put Akira years ahead of its time, predicting the future of animation before most studios even owned computers capable of rendering graphics. The Akira slide changed movies forever. One specific shot from Akira has been recreated more than any other single animation frame in film history. It's called the Akira slide. The scene shows Kaneda bringing his motorcycle to a dramatic stop by sliding sideways, with the bike giving off a massive trail of smoke and electric sparks as it skids to a halt. This 3-second shot has been homaged and recreated in countless films, television shows, and video games. Batman, the animated series, recreated it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles used it. Pokémon referenced it. The Matrix borrowed from it. Steven Spielberg included Kaneda's actual motorcycle in Ready Player One as direct tribute. CD Projekt featured it in Cyberpunk 2077. The slide appears in properties as diverse as Rick and Morty, Kill Bill, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Directors and animators worldwide recognize that single moment as the perfect expression of momentum, control, and style. One shot influenced 30 years of action cinematography. Kanye West's biggest influence, rapper Kanye West, has publicly stated that Akira is his biggest creative inspiration. He wasn't exaggerating. West's 2007 music video for Stronger features direct visual recreation of Akira's aesthetic. The video copies the film's neon-soaked cityscape, motorcycle sequences, and even specific character poses. Every frame is a deliberate homage to Otomo's animation. Michael Jackson also paid tribute. The music video for Scream, featuring Michael and Janet Jackson, includes actual clips from Akira showing Tetsuo falling from a skyscraper. Lupe Fiasco named his entire 2015 album Tetsuo and Youth after Akira's tragic antagonist. The film's influence extends far beyond anime fans. It shaped hip-hop culture, fashion, and music production. Kaneda's iconic red leather jacket became a streetwear staple. The film's dystopian aesthetic influenced artists who had never even heard of anime before. Akira transcended its medium and became pure cultural currency. Predicted the 2020 Olympics. Akira takes place in Neo-Tokyo in the year 2019. Throughout the film, you can see construction and promotional materials for the upcoming Olympics. In 1988, when the film was made, this was pure science fiction. Japan had no plans to host the Olympics in 2019 or 2020. Then, in 2013, the International Olympic Committee announced that Tokyo would host the 2020 Summer Olympics. Katsuhiro Otomo somehow predicted the future 25 years in advance. The coincidence was so bizarre that Japanese media covered it extensively. Of course, the 2020 Olympics were delayed to 2021 due to COVID-19. But the eerie accuracy of Akira's fictional setting remains one of the strangest predictions in film history. Otomo has never explained how he chose that specific year or why he imagined Tokyo hosting the Olympics at that exact time. They invented 50 colors by hand. They drew 160,000 individual cells. They bankrupted animators who couldn't afford to eat. And they created a film so perfect that Hollywood has failed to adapt it for 3 decades. Akira proved that animation wasn't just for children. It could be art, revolution, and prophecy all at once. If you want more animation history, subscribe for deep dives into the chaos of filmmaking.